Happy New Year, everybody! I hope you all had an amazing New Year's night. Hope you're all not still too hungover to not enjoy an Inky video. I just want to take a quick moment to say thank you very much for 2023. I know we only started this second channel sort of towards the end of the year, but it was honestly one of the best decisions of my content creation life because it's given me enough leniency to not have to worry about my main YouTube channel as much, and it's given me some time and space for me to get in the right headspace to actually make content for my main YouTube channel again, which will be happening. So keep your eyes on my main YouTube channel if you haven't gone and subscribed over there. There's going to be some big stuff coming this year. So whether you come and join us on Twitch, whether you check out the YouTube content, thank you so much for enjoying me, and thank you so much for enjoying what we make. Today, though, we have a fun little video. What better way to start off the new year than something patriotically inclined towards my nationality, which, if you couldn't tell, is British. So why not start the first video off of the year with a Garand thumb video, who has decided to make the terrible life choice of using the L85A1. And as a bit of context, I want you to know I was going into the RAF. I am trained on guns. I am a bit of a gun nut, if you will. In fact, I'm as much of a gun nut as I am an anime nut. In fact, as a bit of pretext to this, going into the Royal Air Force and being in the boot camp, I didn't serve. I actually left halfway through boot camp for personal reasons. But I was trained on the L98, the L85, the L85A1. I was also trained on the SA80, multiple sports rifles. So, you know, to say that guns are in my blood is, you know, pretty apparent. You know, if you looked at my blood under a microscope, I'm pretty sure there's like gunpowder in there somewhere. So let's have a little look and see what good old Garand Thumb has to say about the L85A1. If he says anything good about this thing, I'd be honestly shocked. It's a bullpup, and it's about as reliable as a flat tire.
Ooh. Police in the world ain't easy. Somebody's
oh, please tell me he's not doing a British accent right off the bat. I'm gonna friggin' cringe.
Police in the world ain't easy. Somebody's gotta do it.
Oh, I've just had... this has unlocked core memories. Oh, this has unlocked core memories. One of the only main guns fielded by as a mainline rifle, like service rifle, that had as much modability as my butthole. Like, this thing looks kind of swish for a bullpup, but if you're gonna use a bullpup, just use an AUG or something. Like, good lord. I know it's compact and everything, but this thing, the L85A1 and the L85 and the L98 by proxy, these things had the most horrendous... I mean, in training, mine L98 jammed about 15 times in the process of me training to use this thing. It does look kind of cool, and I remember using it in Killing Floor, which is kind of cool, but hey, it's British, innit? Oh god, he's doing a Call of Duty. God save the Queen! Oh, that's in poor taste. She's rolling in her grave. Or stabbed to death in England. Wait.
Oh, you have a giggle.
I feel like I should be offended, but so far everything I've seen is basically the average Tuesday in England.
Mate, that's what you get, blood. Boom.
Sir, you know what? Your British accent could do with work, but it's better than most that I've heard. It's actually better than most British people that I hear. That wasn't bad. That wasn't bad. All right, you know what? As a bit of practice, and you can do this on YouTube as well. Do this with me. We're going to learn how to speak the Queen's English, okay? There's a certain way that you can speak English and sound British without actually needing to try. All you got to do is do the following. First, you say air. So say it with me. Air. And then you follow it up with hair, like the hair on your head. Hair. And then you finish it by saying lair. And when you string it all together, you go air hello. And all of a sudden you sound like the Queen's English. It's great. I love the first thing he shows is a fucking jam. Whose bright idea in the British military was it to friggin' make this the British service rifle? Like, it looks cool, and maybe it's Stockholm Syndrome speaking. I kind of like the look of it. But in terms of functionality, this thing was like trying to This thing was like trying to slice a French loaf with somebody's flaccid penis. Please jam more, please jam more, please.
At least our schools are the shooting gallery.
Oh, he just went there. That was a stealth burn. Oh my god. What's up, Wolf King? Thank you for that raid, by the way. This has been a long old time since I used this gun. I mean, funny thing, and I'm pretty sure this has been a very recent thing. I'm pretty sure in the last year, they have dismissed the L85 as the service rifle, and now they're picking up, I think, the M4A5, I think it's called. Like, it's an okay gun, it's fine, it works, but they could have had so many better choices. Even a FAMAS would have been better, and that's French. Did it jam again? Wait, what happened? It did, it jammed. Of course. Are you kidding me? Dude, this Garand Thumb is having my experience using this thing. Like, so the version you're trained on is the L98, which is the bolt action version of the gun, which, you know, you're not going to get many jams or misfires with that thing because it's a bolt action. It's got one single cycle and it's analog. But the second you bring a automatic function in here, you've got this cycle happening that's so much more extended than a typical, like, forward-loaded rifle that you wonder, it's no surprise that you get these kind of jams. Like, the only functional reason you'd want a bullpup is for the compactability of it, and I guess it kind of looks cool. I love bullpups, don't get me wrong. But even by regular bullpup standards, the L98, the L series of guns really does L a lot. Like, this thing jams more than it should do, even as a bullpup. The Tavor, absolutely. I love the Tavor. The Tavor, the AUG, I suppose technically you could... I don't think you could really count the P90 as a bullpup, technically, but that's also a guilty pleasure of mine. I hope every single time he fires this, it jams. I want to see this thing jam every single clip. Russian reload on the thing. Heretic. He's a spy. He's a spy who's infiltrated the British military. Quickly, throw him in jail. He's trying to steal our documents and take it back to the Kremlin. It jammed again.
I bet you Brits thought we were done with you after the Revolutionary War. Not even close. We have a very special occasion that we... If
you really... I get it. You really want to rub it in that you won the war. But we said we were sorry. If you wanted us to apologize anymore, you could have just asked. You didn't need to rub our faces in our misbegotten deeds. We get it. You're better than us, America. We get it. Stop making us look worse than we already know we are.
We've been granted permission to do a lot of shooting on this rifle. We won't call it a review per se because it's only about a days of experience and a lot of shooting, but we can give
in 1 day of experience, I can guarantee you this thing would have jammed about 90 times. Guaranteed. Thank you for the gifted sub, Nuva. I get it. I'm sorry, I won't pause champ anymore for this, but I cannot get over the fact he's testing this gun. Like, and it baffles me even to, like, now in hindsight, I look back at this and I really question why the hell did England use this as our primary gun? Like, it's the format and caliber are good. It's easily made. It's easily maintainable. Like, I could strip this thing in like in a minute, 2 minutes at most, and it's easily serviceable. But it's so unreliable. And That's not even mentioning how it functions when you take it into an actual combat system with dirt and detritus and stuff that would jam it up. Like, I'm shocked it took them this long to swap this out for a new service rifle.
A lot of good
I know
opinions
not all of the British
shooters ourselves.
army uses this thing,
Garand Thumb, I hope you'll
but most of them did.
We talk about,
or at least the
British
Picatinny
military's
version.
Service rifle, and probably the worst service.
This front guard here, this usually got replaced with a better front guard that allowed for a Picatinny on the front and easier attachments. L85A1 front guard. Where is it? Because it usually looked a bit more like this, which was a lot more functional, and using this foregrip meant that the the gas chamber and the actual barrel wasn't so prone to failure. And it also looks a bit better as well. I never understood this, like, horrendously plastic-looking front, and I think he just said it as well.
Rifle ever made.
You what, mate?
But before we get started, we of course have to thank the biggest sponsor of the channel. The biggest sponsor of the channel is the
Sonoran
right, Micah?
Desert
Oh,
Institute.
it's so much fun. It makes it fun.
It does. And of course, today I have to give a big thank you to AAC. We are sponsored with them. They provide awesome ammo. We are shooting 77 grain today, and it is a performer no matter what. So we love it. But with all that being said, talks cheap.
And not gonna love shooting this gun.
Right here we have the L85A1. It should be noted that there is a upgraded version that is in use within the British military. But unfortunately for them, most of them never got to use it. Because this was so, they made so many of these that when they said, hey, by the way, should we make it better? They were like, well, we've already got so many of these guns already. Who should we actually give the improved L85A1 to? Oh, you know what? We'll only give it to the Special Forces and maybe a few other people. What caliber? So it was predominantly 5.56. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start with our favorite thing. Me and Mike are
That's what I
running
thought.
drills with this piece of shit. And we're gonna see who is better with
Okay,
this
no more
terrible,
pause jamming. No more pause jamming.
terrible
I'm gonna
rifle. You excited?
admire and
Right.
watch
We're gonna be
with
starting with the build drill
admirative gaze his
on
persistence
semi,
and
it should be noted how off the optic
self-deprecant
is.
of using this gun.
That's because
Like,
the
you have to be
optic requires
sadistic
special
to use
tools.
this version of the gun. Please, Jack. Can somebody pick up the phone because I called it?
Oh, neat.
Oh, what do you know? A free
Does
bullet.
that count?
No.
Jam again. Please jam again. Please jam again. Please. Aw.
226. I'll take it. Oh God.
Thing is, and because it's okay, another thing, because it's a bullpup, because all the mechanism is in the back, it has such a slow cyclical rate. Like, to cycle around takes about, I mean, it's not going to sound like it sounds like such a small amount of time, but 1/10 of a second means you're going to be firing roughly 2 rounds less than anything that's front loaded in a 30 round magazine in the span of like in 5 seconds, for example.
So, I don't think the optic is on at all, but I was up there, 2 out, what is that, 0.1 per Charlie? So that's 246. I am Micah now.
I have never shot this gun, and I hate it.
Stand by. Uh, 194. Good job. And you were all in, so
I mean,
guess
it is
I
definitely
just
a
suck
gun.
With the SA-80.
Sorry, I might have worded myself wrong,
you
Kind
win.
has.
I don't know.
I
if
know what
it
I
feels
meant.
good to be.
You gotta
good
keep in
with
mind,
these
whatever
guns.
comes out of my mouth might not be what I was
Okay,
thinking.
now we're gonna run it really, really fast.
What goes
we'll
between
try to
my
give it about
brain and what comes out
6
of my
rounds,
mouth is usually different.
but it will be about keeping it in the A zone.
Cool. Stand by.
I was way off.
I don't know if you were or the optic was.
The grouping wasn't bad,
Ew.
but I was certainly off on 2, 3, 4, 5,
Hey,
6
are you using the irons or the scope?
irons. We're using the optic.
Yeah.
Damn.
Should I just use the irons or the optic?
I use the irons.
Okay.
Stand by.
So that's the optic that it comes with by default. Now, I've not shot many optics, but I've seen enough games and played enough games with other optics to know that when you use an optic for a gun, whether it's a 4 times or whatever, you shouldn't get scoliosis. Not scoliosis. You shouldn't get eye strain from having to use a scope.
Dude,
It's getting hot.
don't touch that. Right where your thumb could go. Don't touch that.
Yeah, that's the same problem in the M4 though with the front sight post.
Fuck! Don't touch the heat shield under there either.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ!
Problem with the M16A1. Nice. Good job.
I think that I think the optic is way more on than the irons.
I think you're correct. Obviously.
Oh, way better.
Oh yeah.
Interesting.
You know what?
I'm
I
getting
guess if you're
nostalgic,
close enough,
actually.
it doesn't matter. Mozambique, 2 to the chest, 1 to the head. Oh. 173.
Yeah.
Yeah, but kind has what I
that's
meant is the
actually very good.
functionality of the
Switch.
gun is definitely not as optimal as
already
using a non-bullpup
Yeah, bye.
weapon. That's what I meant in layman's terms. Like, I don't want to get into the technicality of it because I don't think I could articulate it as well as I could do.
It's always the gun that doesn't.
And to those people out there that don't care about guns, all you got to know is, haha, gun bad.
Piles.
Like, and it's not even like about the fact, like, yes, it shoots, but when you're in a combat situation, you want a gun that's reliable. You don't want to be questioning and playing Russian
got
roulette
lost
with
in the
whether my
optic
gun is going to
rebuys.
shoot or not.
Shooter ready. Stand by.
I will say though, because it's a bullpup,
I got lost in
at
the
the
optic
very
twice,
least,
so-
at the very least, if your gun does jam, because it's so back heavy, you can always use it as a club. Like, this thing will cause severe blunt force trauma if you hit them with it, especially with how friggin' rough the friggin' butt pad is.
Okay, one more time. One more time.
Cheers, lad.
I hate this.
Yo, you too, buddy? I love the fact that they've only used it for a day and they hate it. Because I had to use this for a month. And I think I would have rather have gone into a battlefield with a potato gun.
Yeah.
So once you insert a mag, you can
Hey, Techno, thank you for
reload
the follow,
several
by the way.
ways. You can either run the charging handle, or you can hit that little guy right there. It's the most awkward kind of reload I've ever done. So what we're gonna do right here is a 1 round 1, because that is the basis by which all guns are judged, right, Micah?
Yeah.
But it's just to show you kind of how awkward the controls are on the L85.
It's like the person who put this together knew what the concept of a gun was. But when he decided to actually make the gun,
Gosh, that was... Give me one more.
they only put in the concept. They didn't realize what a gun actually was. Like, the person who made this knew
I think that's
what
about
the
as
concept
fast
of
as
a
I
gun
can
was,
do
but
it
they've
on
never
the
seen
L85,
one
dude.
before.
What was it?
And
407.
they asked him to make one.
You're doing great.
Also, I'm not sure whether it was just my experience, but the magazines they gave us.
I've never reloaded this
Have
gun.
you seen the videos of Firepower United when he does the fucked up like reloads on the M16?
Was that me right there?
Yeah.
I love watching the struggle. It's vilifying my entire experience with this gun. Very validating.
Hey, you ever been-
Dude, I had that exact experience. Oh no, that what they're using is the standard Stanags, yes. But when I was having this is my personal experience. When I had my training, the magazines they gave us were these like horrendously muddy, grubby, badly maintained bollocks, and there was these shitty. I'm pretty sure they were also like baseline Stanags, but they were these. They painted them black. And the paint they'd used fucked up the spring on the inside on most of the magazines. So when it was trying to feed a new round in, it would as if this thing has bad performance as it is. These painted magazines were now even worse. So you had about a 50% chance of a misfire, a 50% chance of it jamming, and then a 50% chance that the friggin' spring in the magazine wouldn't even feed the next round. So, oh, you know what? I'll just fucking die when I get into a firefight then.
kicked out of the military? You just got kicked out of the British military.
Was there a parallel?
Oh! So, I know that every gun range has its, every gun range is very stringent on rules. They should be. They always are. There was a kid, and I'm gonna I still remember this clear as day. There was a very young cadet who was in boot camp with me, and you know, he was a bit of a he wasn't quite well versed with the military. You know, he was doing it for the laugh, mate, in it, bruv. That kind of person. And we were on the very first day of our shooting practice, and this is when we were only using the L98s because you got to get versed with the bolt action before you're trusted with fully automatics. So there was a line of 5 of us prone with our rifles in front of us, and the instructor was off to the left of us. And whilst he was instructing us and pointing down the range and telling us about the range etiquette and had the functionality of the gun, all of a sudden we hear a bang! And we look over and this absolute little gobshite had racked around and shot directly down. And he was like, oh, as if to like this kid with stars in his eyes, like, oh, so that's what that does. And I don't think I've ever seen a man look so like the instructor. I don't think I've ever seen a man look so shocked, and also quite so horrified, and also quite so dumbfounded at the same time. Like there was so many expressions going on in this instructor's face at one time. Yeah, he didn't come back the next day, and what was funny was that that was literally the second day we were there. I think he, to this day, still holds the record of the quickest washout of that boot camp that I went to. Of that specific, like, training camp. Even, yeah.
Barrel designed by some designer who's never run a mile
if you want if you want an easy way out of the military, maybe I shouldn't be telling you this, but obviously, if you ever want, like, an easy out of being in the military, just play around with guns on the range. You might get arrested for a bit, but they'll kick you out instantly.
Or was it designed from input from athletes in Tier 1 military operators? Because Barbell Apparel did just that. Now, the reason we here on the channel like Barbell Apparel so much is one, it's on stretch
sponsor
collection. So a big thank you to them for
I swear to God,
us to borrow them and put rounds
Garand
on these very
videos are like
priceless weapons,
90% sponsorships.
As far as I know, a lot of these rifles that are currently in the U.S. So very base of them. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so
Maxim.
I mean, this is kind of an evident thing.
And
As the British military have been sort of worming these out and making them redundant, they've been sort of entering secondhand circles.
More so than the engineering perspective.
AN95? I don't think I have
Mike, retired out of Air Force Special Warfare and spent a good amount of time in the military. And now I just do a lot of shooting. And then, of course, we had Micah. Micah, what's the best way you describe yourself?
An idiot.
Nerd. Gun enthusiast.
Gun enthusiast. Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
Counter-Strike shoots better than me a lot.
Counter-Strike. I am Master League in Counter-Strike, which instantly validates me to talk about guns.
Realize that it was plagued with quite a few issues. I don't know if this was so much the problem of the design, to some extent, as it was problems with the QC where it was made. And this is pretty unfortunate because I think that it could have come out of the gate doing a lot better.
I think from what I remember, because we actually talked about this with we talked about this with my first instructor, because we all knew that the gun was shit, and even our instructors would make jokes about it. They would. I distinctly remember. I think it was my third time using the L98. You know how in like American military movies, they're always like, "This is your rifle. You will love your rifle. This is your wife now. You will love your wife. You will." Yeah, our instructor was like, "This is the L98. It is a piece of shit. It will make you hate it. You are going to despise this thing. But this is something you're going to put up with like a depressive ex." Really shows the parallels between how the British military talk about their guns versus the Americans. The British hate their guns, the Americans love their guns, and it really shows in how you get taught by them. It's to set your expectations for them.
But you have to realize that when it came out, at the time it came out, the M16A2 had already been out for a year or two and had already been adopted by the United States military. So when we talk about like reliabilities of a service weapon and being,
when you say the word gun,
well-tuned with 5.56,
this is the sort of thing you think
already
about.
Been accomplished.
America!
Not just with the M16, but multiple others. So when the British came onto the scene with the L85A1, and it finally made it into soldiers' hands, it was certainly a disappointment in many ways. It's not all bad.
I can imagine. I can totally imagine that when this first came on the scene,
which was basically an upgrade from HK, which was British owned. the weapon performed much better, and that's more than likely due to the
when
fact
when
that
the first people got this,
the
they were like,
tolerances were
"Wow,
much
this looks
better,
so
the
cool
QC
and
was much
futuristic.
better,
It's
and
actually
essentially
got
the
buttons
entire
on
rifle
it."
was gutted
And then they
except for the
fired the
receiver,
thing, and they were instantly
you
filled
had
with
a much
regret.
better rifle at that point. As far as my experience with this rifle, in practical terms, I spent a lot of time working with the British military.
Hey,
You
Martha,
guys know
thank
who
you very
they
much for
are
the
out there.
resub.
So I got to talk to a lot of people about the L85A2 mostly, not the A1. But you guys certainly have your opinions on it. In any case, let's go ahead.
The A2
let's
is the
get into
upgraded
it.
version he was
We're gonna
talking
start
about.
tip to butt, just
I
like
never got the chance to fire the A2. I was in boot camp around the time the A2 was being distributed, but obviously for training purposes, they're not going to give you the better version of the gun. You got to be trained with the shit to know what it is you're missing out on. You know, when you're being trained to use guns, you have to look at the A2 and be like, if I do well in boot camp, I get to use that in the future.
my Royal Marines love, and we're going to start with flash hider right here. The flash hider is very much so like the M16A1, which was a full spectrum birdcage flash hider, which means it's not, there's nothing on the M16A2.
Also, does anyone else notice that when you have
that it has it's blocked
Can
off
you guys
to the
name
ports
me
at the bottom,
any
that way you don't
games
kick
that
up as
have
much
the
dirt when you're
L98 or
firing.
the
That's
sorry
not
the
so much the case
SA
with the L85A1. This isn't a bad
L85A
design per se.
Damn it.
It's just a
As
design
again.
choice. It does a good job at
Can
flash
you name me
suppression.
any games with the
It is longer than
L85A1 in
typical
it?
A2 birdcage
Or the
flash hider,
L85 in general?
and performs very well in my
The
opinion.
only one that comes to mind
When it comes to the L85 as a whole weapon, we do of course have a bullpup.
Killing
What
floor.
this means is that we're able to get more barrel length.
It's almost like most game developers
despite it
know
being a shorter weapon.
that
So,
they shouldn't put this in their games.
both the M16 and the L85.
So that is probably the only reason you would ever like. This is probably one of the main upsides of bullpupping a gun: compactability. But sometimes having that space is good.
have the same barrel length, but as you can see,
Stalker?
the
Oh,
L85
it is, isn't it?
is
Yes,
quite a
you're
bit
right. I
shorter
remember.
than the M16 A2 right here. So it's quite impressive. Why this is important is the M4 is a very similar size to the L85, but the fragmentation range of 5.56 out of the M4 is much shorter than what you get out of the L85. Now, there, of course, are problems with having a bullpup. The action being closer to your ear means that it's louder at the shooter's ear. Some ergonomic problems and weight distribution problems,
Yep.
especially during full
What I
auto
said in the
fire.
beginning.
But there's always a trade-off, and the British decided that they really wanted to have a bullpup rifle. So, moving from the barrel, it is
Yeah,
a very,
bullpups are neat,
from what I've
but
seen,
practically
accurate rifle.
there's
We
very
weren't
few
able
that are
to
gonna
test
live
that
up to
as
the standards
well,
of a
and that came down
front-loaded
to
gun.
a problem with we didn't have the correct tools in order to properly zero this older optic. That's not a dig against the rifle or the optic, it's just those tools are somewhere in
Garand, please. I can see the guile in your eyes, my guy. You want to say that's not a dig because you don't want to upset the British servicemen that you worked with. But what you really said is what you really said behind that pretense is that this is the worst gun you've ever fired. You hate it, you loathe it, you want to throw it in a molten pit somewhere and melt it down for parts. I know that face. I know that face.
the United Kingdom, God knows where. But if you have them, send them to us. From talking to soldiers who served in the British military, they have noted the weapon is accurate, and from everything that I've heard, it's
And for
slightly less
context,
accurate than the AR-15 anywhere.
in
from
England, we
1.5
can't
to
own
2
guns.
MOA, from the factory.
The best we can
and then
own,
from there,
quote unquote, the
of
best,
course you have
we're
your,
allowed to own
about 4
bolt action
MOA
rifles
before it's
and
retired out of
shotguns.
service,
That is
barrels
it.
change,
Oh,
et
and
cetera,
black
et
powder
cetera.
revolvers.
So good
But
on the
even
barrel. Moving back
those-
to the handguard.
Even
this is where a
those, we
lot of
need to
problems
do
with the
stupid amounts of
L85A1 kinda
paperwork
come into
and
play.
security checks and yearly security
the plastic
checks
that they use
therein.
had a problem with the insect repellent that was
It's also
used in the British
stupid
military.
expensive.
So it ended up melting from that insect repellent. So that's super unfortunate, of course, for the composition of the plastic that they
and I'm
use,
like
the
this now.
composite material.
Cool.
But another problem was that this kind of top plate right here.
And you own rapid fire crossbows.
It's really easy for this to
not
come
legally.
loose, so a lot of guys ended up zip tying it down. You can see why that would definitely be frustrating to have that happen in the field. So that's definitely
One of my one of my instructors was trying to like tell us the good things about the rifle whilst we were getting orienteering around it, and he was showing us the fully automatic functionality. And as he only let off a burst of 5 shots, and in the span of those 5 shots, his gun jammed, and the gas chamber lid here flipped open. Really setting home how good this gun was.
It's something that frustrated me as I was shooting, because if it caught on gear as I was moving, switching positions, that ended up catching. And that's kind of a, what's the best way to say it? It's kind of a theme
L85 is
that you're gonna see
legit. Like the
throughout
A1 is
L85A1,
legitimately
that
bad.
there's these little things that just kind of irk you
No matter
about
how
the
much
rifle
pretense you put behind
as you're
it,
kind of
it is
working as you're
legitimately
shooting
terrible.
it, as you're going through it. So we do have a sling mount point right there. No
I mean,
issues there.
it is
Actually,
functionally a
it's great
gun
mounting
as
point,
far
much
as the
like
term
M4.
gun goes.
Moving back, I do have
But
to
the
say,
experience of firing it will
though,
make
my
you
favorite
wish
thing
you
about
could,
the L85A1 is
you
how
know,
cool it looks.
fire literally anything
like,
else.
I remember seeing this in like Call of Duty back in the day, and like the heat
Oh
guard.
yeah, it was in the original older Call of Duties,
in
wasn't
the
it? I remember
sheet
that
metal,
now.
These holes, it just looks cool as hell.
It does
I
look
think
cool.
It's one of the
Like,
cooler looking bullpups out there.
That is one of the only things that I will give it, and I to this day, functionality aside, it is one of my favorite looking guns. Maybe it's because I'm patriotic, maybe it's because I'm covered in milk right now, but I love the look of this thing. But especially when it's not got that. I mean, even I like this thing like a dog owner likes a pug. Yeah, you know what? Functionally, they're a little bit lacking, but they look adorable. Like, you kind of pity it in a way. And eventually you grow to love it, you know? In its slightly demented looking, kind of walking awkwardly, breathing problems kind of issues looking thing. I don't know whether it's just I don't know whether it's admiration or yeah.
Do you agree with me, Micah?
No.
Micah just hates this rifle, so we're gonna pretend he doesn't exist. Now, moving back from there,
just
because we have
like
the
my
bullpup,
dad.
we're gonna be slightly out of order, but we do have the fire control group. Now, when it comes to bullpups, something that a bullpup does suffer from is
In my mind, bullpups are fine in small doses, but they should not, and I repeat, should not be made the main service rifle of an entire military. Like, in specific cases, bullpups are great, like close quarters, or, I don't know, maybe you're in a specific team that's doing riot, or maybe dealing with, you know, maybe CQC or terrorist issues, or whatever else. Like, maybe you're a specialized team of sorts. But I don't think it should be. I don't think it should have been ever been the main line of guns for an entire military. That was a very big oversight. I feel like it. I think I remember having a discussion with one of my instructors where they said it was a big part of money as well, because it was a lot cheaper to make than most of the other guns. Because there was also a time where the British military were using the SA-80, I believe, but it was so much more expensive. Like, to make one SA-80, you could make 3 L85s.
compared to a more conventional weapon. That comes down to the fact that on a conventional weapon like an AR-15, there's not a whole lot of engagement that has to be released in order to release a hammer. On a bullpup, because the bolt is all the way back here, that hammer has to be all the way back there.
Is he gonna say it?
That means this trigger has to have a bar that's traveling all the way back.
Yep, that's what I thought. That's what I said. I'm big smart. I big knowledge on the guns. If only I could be big knowledge and smart on everything else. Yo, Alicia, good morning.
Longer bar just
Hi,
means you're
Van,
gonna
how
have
you
to
doing?
exert more force. The bullpup triggers are typically more gritty, longer, they just feel worse. And people say a trigger doesn't matter. I highly disagree with that. I think a good trigger is a godsend for a shooter. People will probably disagree with me, but
That's
as
what I
long
said
as I've
about
been
my
shooting,
ex.
and as many rounds as I've shot, I found that the more I shoot, the more I appreciate a good trigger. So, with all that being said,
I'm sure there's an allegory in here
go
somewhere
ahead and let's try
about
the
love
trigger
life
out right
and
here.
triggers
Okay,
being used
going
for.
into it, we have about 3 millimeters of play.
Oh god, I'm getting PTSD. I'm having core memories unlocked of this trigger. Haha, getting triggered from a trigger. You know what? You know how sometimes you get phantom sense when you've lost a limb? My right finger just had a mild spasm from seeing that trigger. When I fired this, I don't think I've ever fired a gun in my life that has had more of a problematic trigger than this thing. And I think the majority of the problem was because it was plastic. Why would you ever make a trigger out of plastic? That's prone to warping, it'll deform, and the reason why you have all this, like, space of movement is because after a while, plastic kind of just, it doesn't sit as well as it used to. The reason why you want metal is because it's gonna...
Pushing into it, about 5, 6, about 6-pound pull. Let's feel that reset. Coming forward about 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 mil.
That would be like using one of those like heinously bad PlayStation 2 controllers with the joysticks where you've kind of pushed them down too hard and they don't really respond as well anymore. It's like you're purposely using a gun with latency. It's like you have real life 300 ms in a real world war situation. Like, yes, I'm going to pull my trigger now. 5 seconds later, bang!
Millimeters. That's a long reset on that guy. From the reset, good let off about 4 pounds. Not
It's also very impressive. He knows the
there are of course better ones
how
out
to
there.
determine.
I think the Devore has an exceptional
He said the
trigger for a
Devore!
military
Okay.
rifle that is a bullpup, but this is certainly miles better than the Styro.
I was about to say if there are exemptions to all bullpups being bad. I can't find it. I think I have horrendous spelling. Guys, how do I spell Devore? I don't know shit about guns, so thank you for explaining. Hey, listen, Alicia, there are very few things in my life that I am moderately competent at. One is verbal diarrhea, and the other is knowing far too much about very niche topics, one of those being guns. Like, ask me anything about life skills, couldn't tell you. How do I do my taxes? Don't know. Ask me how do I get out of bed in the morning? With difficulty. But ask me about the cyclical rate of a P90 versus another bullpup type, and I'll be like, oh, actually, because the P90 was a very optimized weapon, used a very high alloy. You know what I mean? There it is. I mean, it's a much more modern gun. Like, you look at that and you're like, wow, that's an interesting Nerf gun. But this is what happens when somebody who actually understands gun design makes a bullpup. Like, it bothers me because I want to like bullpup gun. I want to like bullpups. I really do. And there are some that are good. But the majority of times, it's the fundamentality of bullpups that cause their problems. And I guess now we're in a sort of stage where, you know, gunsmithing is modernized enough where even bullpups can be reliable. But, oh boy, we needed that kind of ingenuity back when this thing was made. Because, good lord, there are far too many people out there with burn marks all the way up their arm from this thing who really would have wished that this thing would have been the Tavor.
Which is still, to date, the worst trigger on a bullpup I've ever felt. So, not bad for my British military guys. The safety is right here, right above the trigger. So press N for safety. So when you're holding this weapon, this is a right-handed weapon. If you need to disengage that safety...
In England, it's kind of a meme to just hate on this thing just because.
Being an AR-15
But it's got some
guy,
cute little things that you can appreciate. Just
of course,
like a
I love
pug.
being able to
Like,
have
my
trigger
allegory for
ready
this is
prepped,
you
be
could
able to
describe
flick off
the
safety with my thumb on the opposite
L85
side.
the way you
So I
describe
don't
a pug.
Using my trigger finger to disengage
Yeah,
the
it's
safety.
a little
I
bit
do
demented.
understand
Yeah,
that
it looks
for
a little
military
silly.
Force,
But you eventually
it is,
come to love it,
better
even with all
safety
its
protocol and
failings.
procedure, but I'm not going to specifically dock
The thing
the
was
rifle
to replace
for
the
that.
FAL.
That's certainly
So
just
I
a
mentioned that
manual
earlier.
arms
The
thing. That's
FAL,
just
the
me
SA80.
personally as a shooter, what I don't like
Those
about
are
it.
sexy
But
looking guns. I honestly
the
don't
grip angle
understand
is
why they
fine.
wanted to replace those.
Moving
Oh
back
wait, no, I do. I remember. I said it a second ago. Price. For every one SA80 and FAL they made, they could have made 3 of these. Plus, they wanted to be edgy and be like. There was a bit of an ego thing as well because the Brits at the time, especially after Vietnam, they basically said to themselves, well, we feel like we haven't made a gun in a while, and all these Americans seem to be making lots of guns, so why don't we make something? And then they gave the job to the one guy who's never fired or even looked at a gun in his life.
into the action, the one thing I do have to say about the L85A1 is that I was really surprised at how smooth the bolt rides inside the rifle. I hope you can kind of see that or feel that. It's an exceptionally
kidding me?
smooth rifle.
Every
And you
L85
really have to
I
give it
ever
to 'em,
fired
for how
felt
good
like
that
the
feels. A lot of
friggin',
rifles, when you cycle them, when you rack them, you can feel a lot of grit, like the Styrog and stuff. It doesn't feel good to cycle.
No, I'm sorry. He
The
must have just
L85
gotten the very rare
comes to its
L85
recoil,
that doesn't jam every time you
it's very
pull
much
the
so
charging handle back.
Styrog-like. It's not incredible. And that's due to the fact that so much of your weight is kind of back that your
Yes,
muzzle
this is
has
what I
more of
mean.
a tendency to rise.
This is the issue of having all the
I
weight
understand
and all
this
the
is,
mechanisms
you know,
towards the
there's always
back. It
pluses and
causes
minuses to
so
bullpups.
much.
I don't prefer it. I don't like the weight all the way back there. But
It
so when you
causes
fire,
such
it
a-
definitely does jump a little bit more than an AR-15.
Okay, you know what? The best way I can articulate this is by showing you. So the reason why guns that are front-loaded, so if this was like a typical, you know, what does a gun look like again? So if this was like a typical front-loaded gun, like an M4, for example, all of this action's in the middle. Like the center of gravity, the center of action is all balanced in the middle, which is great because that's kind of where, you know, everything is. But when it's all at the back, it becomes much harder to stabilize because everything's happening in the back. So you're getting much more this like rocking faction. There's much more like there's much more of like vibrations. There's much more stuff and motion happening that can cause something to go wrong, which is why in my mind, is probably one of the leading reasons why you get so many jams, because there's so much more gyration, so much more vibrations. It'll cause the action of a round cycling to much more predominantly cause either the casing to get jammed or to not cycle properly. That is just more of a fundamental problem with bullpups in general, but not always, and you can compromise. You can compensate for that, but these old bullpups just do not at all. Yes!
That being said,
also gleaming, good to
if
see you.
that's a trade-off that you're okay with, then it's not that big of a deal. When it
Dude,
comes to
imagine
select
going
fire
up
on
to
this
someone
guy,
in 1999 working in the
I
British
do
military
find
and
that
say,
it's,
so we got good news and bad news. The good
it's not
news is you're
terrible,
going to
obviously,
war.
but it certainly has
The
more
bad
recoil
news is
than
you're
many
using
other
the
5.56
L85.
weapons out there. You can really feel that bolt kind of chattering as you're on auto on this guy. Not my favorite thing. Semi-auto is acceptable. So
I'm also mildly offended that he hasn't done this entire review sounding
best way to
British.
describe it is it's a bullpup.
It's British,
It's a
innit,
little bit
love?
clunky when you're kind of firing it in semi and,
Oh,
and
mate.
auto. It's not the best
So
experience.
allow me to translate this for the British people out there. Oh, mate, this rifle's proper minging, bruv. Yeah, the front's as about as gaped open as your mama's bussy, and your back end, oh, don't get me started on that, mate. It's fucking rancid, bruv.
Experience, although you do have a very compact rifle. Now, moving back from there, we do have the magazine release. This is a big pet peeve of mine right here. So the magazine release is really not that protected at all. And what
If this
can
was a video
happen
being
is
done in the British military, by the way, they would have been fired from the military already. There's no Union Jack in the back. There's no national anthem playing. You haven't saluted the Queen 15 times. No, this would never have passed in the UK. Never.
it can push up against your gear, up against magazines, and release. And this was a big complaint from the British military folks.
So this video
Of
is
course,
23
with
minutes
the
long.
advent of the 85A1,
It could have been 3
this is
minutes.
no longer an issue.
It would have taken
So
1 minute to show how
magazines
the
is
gun
just
fires.
weird. Kind of the whole manual
And then the
arms when it
next
comes
2
to
minutes
reloading is a
complaining
little
that
bit
it's
weird.
bad,
I understand
and
kind
you
of
would have
what
been
they're
done.
doing. The idea being that you have your let me get that locked in there. You have your
Oh, and
bolt
then
release
maybe
right
30
here.
seconds of
I don't
throwing
think I can
stones
get
at it to
with,
prove that it's better as a
without a
paperweight
bullet
than
in
it
there.
would ever
But
be as a
the idea
gun.
being that, you know, you're gonna rip that mag out, you put your mag in, and then either you're going to reach up and hit that, or reach back and hit that charging handle, or reach over, or press it up, whatever have you. It's just kind of odd. On a lot of bullpups, you usually end up having the bolt release.
I still find it funny he
somewhere
tried
back
reloading
here,
it like a
because
freaking
that way, when you
AK-47
get that
or an
mag
AK
in,
or a
you can just
Russian
hit that
gun
bolt
in
release
general.
and get moving.
Ah.
I think that's a better position after having run
Ew,
many
bullpups. Alicia,
I understand
how
that
do you
the
think I feel?
L85A1
I
is an
had to
older
use this
design,
gun.
but
I
that being
used
said,
this.
we're
I
still
have
gonna dock it.
phantom
It's just a
sense
very
of
odd
using this thing
manual
and how
arms when it comes to
terrible
the
it was.
L85A1. From the magazine going back.
I mean, I'm
you
one
get
of the
selector
very
switch.
quote-unquote
This isn't
lucky Brits that
uncommon
have managed to
have a
fire
separate
fully automatic
safety
weapons in their life.
selector. A lot of my AR-15 guys are so used to safe fire auto, but on many
That little shit right there. That little shit. That little that little bitch right there. That's the pin that holds the upper receiver in place. That motherfucker would come loose more often than the butt plug in your mum's asshole. Like when you were in boot camp, you had about a 50% chance that whilst you were firing this thing, that would come loose and fall off. Because whoever designed these things didn't take into consideration that because all the vibrations were at the back and all the action being at the back would cause this thing to come loose and become weared much more heavily. Like they could have had any other clip, but this thing is literally this bolt back here. It is quite literally something that looks like this. And it's got very minimal striations up it to kind of get that, keep it in place as well. And sometimes they didn't even have ones with striations. It was just literally a pin that you jammed in there and hope it wouldn't come loose.
But on many rifles, it's safe fire up by the trigger group, and then you select the firing position at some other location. So right here, we have our select fire, and then up there we have our semi. I think it's intuitive. I do like the location. It's certainly not something you're going to be changing that quickly, but I really don't have a whole lot of issue here. I do have issue with the cheek pad right here. It's very well known that these crack very easily, and in fact, while we're shooting, it did crack.
If you were in boot camp, you just didn't have a butt pad.
Rifle, and you know, plastic has a finite life, but that being said, it was known to crack in many different environments.
I always found the fact they used plastic, so much plastic on things. Again, all these weird. This is what I joke about the person not knowing what a gun looks like, but the fact they used so much plastic on this was one of the things that really reinforced the idea that whoever made this really didn't know guns, because if they did, they wouldn't have. Like, a little bit of plastic is fine. Don't get me wrong. Plastic can be great for guns, but the plastic they used and in the places they used it with, it just, yeah.
They
might have had a budget. Oh, that was the entire reason, Anderson. That was the entire reason. The entire reason the L85 and that series of guns exist is because England was cheaping out on their guns.
Avoided a lot of this with a little bit of QC and a little bit more on
the they had other guns in circuit at the time,
that this didn't happen.
But they made this the main issue, because the main standard issue, because for each.
But moving back from there, from the
for
entire
one
rifle,
foul,
we do have
they
the
could
optic.
make 3 of these.
I understand that the optic is kind of a pain in the ass nowadays, but back then it was definitely very cool and very forward-thinking. It is very Elcan-like.
Yeah, that's what it was. This was a neat idea. It was a great concept, but terrible execution.
That being said,
just like my life.
Many reticles back then. I think it was a good thing overall, especially compared to many of the other service rifles that you had out there.
Also, I can imagine there's like 2 types of people out there at the moment watching this video. There are the people who are like, "Oh, Makari pretty," and then there's the other people who are like, "Gun." And then there's the third type of people that are like, "Ah, yes, gun." Nod. What is gun?
Great.
Gun is gun. Gun
shoot.
shoot.
Good. Overall, the L85A1.
Just say
definitely not my
it
favorite
sucks.
shooting experience. Definitely not my favorite rifle.
Dude,
I'm definitely not going to say the worst service rifle.
No, please, I can see it in your face. You want to. You really want to. Just say it.
But a service rifle that could have avoided a lot of the problems by simply putting this rifle through better trials. I think this is a weapon that you can certainly get good with. It can be very effective.
I love how we're going to go from watching this into playing Dark Tide, which has very, very non-realistic guns.
Due to the design
yet,
so much as they were due to just
Warhammer guns would still probably be more preferable to this.
A good service rifle, a good military rifle, especially after the upgrades.
This would certainly make the Emperor very upsetty spaghetti.
Don't have a whole lot of problems with it.
In fact, I'm pretty sure the Emperor
British guys a hard time about it because
would
you guys had to kind
ban the use of bullpups in the 41st
millennium.
millennium.
Thing, guys, if you're training with this rifle, you're going to be good with it. You're going to get deadly with it. I've seen, you know,
that was the thing. I think one of the reasons, and even to this day, they still use the L85 as the training rifle, is because if you can get good with the L85, imagine how good you're going to be when they give you a gun that actually functions better than my brain does. Like, if you are able to make a literal dumpster fire of a gun work and hit the target, then when you get given a gun that's actually decent, you're going to be a friggin' killer.
Of different British military guys just absolutely crush these rifles. So get out there, train, get hands-on time with these types of rifles, and you're absolutely going to do a great job, and you're going to rock. Guys, thank you so much for
what we've learned from this is you shouldn't bullpup everything.
We've got to review a lot of
bullpup a gun. Cool bullpup a pup. But don't bullpup your dick. Wow, what a learning experience. I don't know if anyone on my channel cares about guns. Those who do, sure. But for me, this was a patriotic look at my country's terrible life choices. Now, America, please stop rubbing in the fact you beat us. We get it. Just ask us to say sorry again. Stop making fun of our existence in every other manner. Oh boy. Alright guys, this has been a fun video. I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye, have a good new year.